Versa best company.
Versa Business System.
It's a better
Versa Business System.
Versa Business System.
Shine.
Welcome to the Versa Business Tips Podcast. I'm your host, founder and CEO of Versa Business Systems, Shaheen Mazloom. We're here with a guest today, the VP of Content and Corporate Communications, Mike Barton from AudioEye. We're here to talk about something that not a lot of people know about, digital accessibility. Mike, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what AudioEye does.
Yeah, you got it. So thanks for having me on the show. Excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I've been in marketing for about 20 years now, creating content, marketing programs. I was at Adobe for a while, creating content for businesses across every part of the content spectrum. And
Right.
at no point in those many years of creating content and working on websites and creating digital experiences and talking about the importance of the customer, not once did I ever think, are my content experiences accessible to a blind person? Are they accessible
Right.
to somebody, right, who might have a mobility impairment and doesn't have use of their hands? Which again wasn't because I was actively going out trying to create content that was inaccessible. I just wasn't
Right.
thinking about it, like, which is I think the
Yeah.
case for most people. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm kind of out here now, part of AudioEye, trying to raise awareness with other marketers, other business leaders about what digital accessibility is, why it's important, and
Right.
how businesses need to be thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm sure one of the questions that a lot of people have, I know I did when I first heard this term, is there a huge market of people that are blind or deaf or, don't have mobility of their hands? Like, how big of a market are we talking here?
Yeah, so that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions that people are shocked to hear about, which is that 1 in 4 people have a disability of some sort. So
Wow.
you see the ones like blindness or someone in a wheelchair,
Right.
but there's cognitive disabilities, there's
Right.
invisible hidden disabilities that you don't always see. So it's actually quite a significant pool of people, not only in the US, but globally. And in addition to that, just the sheer number of people with disabilities, another misconception is that because it's small, it's not a market that you need to quote unquote worry about too much. When in reality,
Right.
people with
I
this
mean, by the sounds of things, it's not really
Right,
small.
exactly. It's not only is it not small, but we found that people with disabilities, when they find a site that works for them, right, they're just like the rest of us. When you find a site that has low friction, makes it easy for you to do business with them, it
Yeah.
makes it, treats you as a unique individual, you become loyal,
Right.
right? And you not only are loyal, but you tell your friends and your family. And we found
Yeah.
that that's especially true with people with disabilities who, tell their friends who have a disability, like, hey, go check out this
Right.
this site. You can use it easily. And their family and their friends might not have a disability, but want to support companies that
Yeah.
support their loved ones. That's a third.
100%. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's got to be. It's crazy that most, like, I consider myself a pretty well-rounded person. I have friends and family with disabilities. I have a disability myself, and until I saw Audio Eye, I didn't really think about it with my own business, right? Like, is my website accessible? And I know it is somewhat, because I've actually had a couple people apply. One was I can't remember if he was blind. Yes, blind. So, like, but somehow, he was able to learn a lot about our business and our company. So we got to be doing something right, but we didn't even know that we were doing anything right.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay, so I own a business and I need to figure out, okay, is my website, is my information out there accessible to people with disabilities? Is it all internet based, or are there other parts of the business that they should be looking at as far as accessibility?
Yeah, I mean, essentially anything digital needs to be accessible. So that's, yeah, your
Yeah.
websites, mobile apps, even like SaaS products that kind of live behind
Right.
a login or a sign-in form. Those need to be
Yeah.
accessible as well. So, yeah, another misconception we hear, as an example, I was just talking to someone a little bit ago, introducing the idea of digital accessibility, and he owns like a protein supplement company. And he's like, "Oh,
Right.
blind people don't use my product, so
Right.
I don't."
Blind people don't work out.
Right, they don't work
Like,
out, they don't use my product.
what?
Yeah, so I'm like, well, that's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you don't build it
Yeah.
to so they can use it, then yes, you're correct.
Right.
They then won't use it.
Yes. Yeah.
But
100%.
but the reality is that, for a blind person, a lot of people don't recognize that the way they access the internet is through something called a screen reader, and that,
Yeah.
little piece of technology that they use, whether it's a separate piece or integrated into their computer, it literally reads the code to them because obviously, right,
The
that they're
code.
not reading it. Yeah, so like everything that's coded into the page, the words, the alt text of the images,
Oh, wow.
the link description of where the link is going to
Right.
go, all things like that, that for somebody who's sighted, it just all comes together. That's being read to them, and so if it's not coded and built accurately, they'll have no idea how to navigate the page. They'll have no idea
Right. Like what it is, where stuff is. Yeah.
exactly. And
Interesting.
a lot of people are like, oh, there's probably some accessibility issues, but generally my site's fine. And I think a lot of people are shocked to find that like the average web page, not website, but web page, has between 2 and 300 accessibility issues when you're not thinking about accessibility. Like it stacks up quickly.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's insane. That's crazy. But you make a good point when you talk about that protein, the protein shake guy. Well, blind people or deaf people or so and so don't use my products. And I think you're right. I think it's, now there may not be a ton of blind people or a ton of deaf people driving, but there are some,
right.
right? Like they may not be fully blind, right? But if they have a hard time seeing on a computer screen, right? Because from my understanding, when it comes to sight, some people have a really hard time with the computer screen, but they may be able to see like
Right.
the things in front of them and around in the world. But there's something to do with the way a computer screen or TV screen is that they can't really see it very well, and so they need to use these other things. So, now, where does one start? Like, what's the starting point to be like, okay, well, I I guess I would be curious as to, my customer base is business owners, right?
Right.
So I'd be curious to know, is there a lot of business owners with either hand impairment or eye or hearing impairment? Maybe not a lot, but are there some, right? If there's some, then that's a market that that's something that we should fix. But is it super expensive? Like, does the whole website need to be rebuilt? Like, what kind of work are we looking at, to do this? And then on the flip side, for new businesses, how can they focus on this in the beginning to make sure they don't have to rebuild things down the end, down the line, like a lot of us will have to do after watching this podcast.
Yeah, great question. Because yes, most sites are inaccessible as they are built. So that's one of the first
Right.
questions, right? Yeah, do I have to rebuild everything? Do I have to start over? That's going to be expensive, developer costs, etc. The answer is generally no. Like that's what we do at AudioEye is we bring in technology and humans who can kind of go in and go through like your checkout process or your sign up process
Right.
and find any key issues that might happen for a person with a disability. But there is technology
Right.
out there that allows you to, essentially add some code on your site that will automatically identify and fix some of those common issues. So that
Awesome.
technology allows you going forward to be pretty accessible. But then part two
Right.
is, like you said, really as you're building in going forward, really trying to understand what are some of the low hanging fruit. In other words, like what are some of
Right.
the common issues that exist that might be
Yeah,
like replicating on my site. Like the reason I said
for
earlier
sure.
that there's like 200 to 300 issues on a page is like if you have an image or a CTA link that you're just using repeatedly and
Right.
the alt text on it is wrong, that just cascades right from page to page to
Yeah.
page. And so
Oh,
basics like that
100%.
really can help as you're building going forward to make sure that you're
Right.
covering 80% of issues and things like that.
Right. Now, so like things like, a lot of businesses advertise on Facebook and YouTube and all these social media platforms. Are all of those pretty what's it called?
Digital.
Digitally accessible? Or are there still some of the major ones that still aren't very
Yeah,
accessible?
I'd say as you go to the bigger companies, like the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world, often they'll have like a chief accessibility officer. They'll be definitely
Oh, okay.
prioritizing it because there are laws both in the US and globally in terms of digital accessibility where you can get sued. In fact, Target settled for, I want to say like 5 or 6 million a couple of years ago. There's another big e-commerce site just a couple months ago that settled for about $6 million also. So these
Wow.
companies recognize not only is it a compliance issue and like we don't want to get
Right.
sued by people with disabilities, but also, again, going back to our friend who has the protein business,
Yeah.
if you look at it the right way, not as like a compliance check mark and just something I got to do to
Right.
make sure I don't get sued,
Right.
it can actually be a new source of growth and business. And like
Yeah.
if you're again
Yeah.
creating these experiences, one, they can shop so they can be customers, but two,
Right.
they bring that loyalty with them. And again, going back to
Yeah.
the protein guy, like part of my
Yeah.
conversation with him, and to your point, there might not be a lot of people with disabilities who are working out, but
Right.
you're selling protein. You're
But
not
like you
you're not
said,
selling a workout.
if you make it easier for a blind person to follow your website and to get to things that, and know where things are and all that, make it so easy a blind man can do it. Everybody's heard that saying,
Right.
right? So it benefits you regardless because whether they're blind or not, if you make it, so your website flows in a way that a blind person can follow it, then a person that can see 2020 is going to be able to follow it even easier.
That is a huge benefit that most people
Right.
don't pick up on right away that you just nailed, which is when you
Right.
build accessibly, so you build for that blind person, then
Right.
everybody
It just makes
else,
it that much easier for everybody else that does have the
exactly.
ability.
You get a much
Yep.
better experience for everybody else. And so, like the rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah.
Accessibility is one of those rising tides that makes your site more
Yep.
usable. It makes it more crawlable by SEO. So, a lot of companies are seeing
Yeah.
better SEO results because they've
Yeah,
got
exactly. SEO results. I mean, even like ChatGPT,
100%.
sharing correct information and all that. I'm thinking now that like that makes perfect sense. So even if you don't have any customers that are going to be, blind or deaf or whatever, um, it still makes sense to make your website and where you're putting your business information digitally accessible because it just makes it so much better on all the, like you said, for SEO, for people that don't have disabilities. It just makes it's easily followable and readable and it's understood and
Yeah.
all that good stuff. No,
Exactly. One of
that's
the
incredible.
one of the basic principles or items that you look for in digital accessibility is color contrast. So, to your point earlier, that
Uh,
um, not everybody is, completely blind. You've got some people who are
yeah,
partially blind, some people who are just colorblind. So, if you make
right.
the text and the imagery have the right contrast ratio,
I
again,
didn't even think about that.
that makes it easier for me, who's just short on
Right.
time, and I'm trying to skim your page If you've got the right
Yeah.
ratios there, it's much easier to consume the content, understand it,
Right.
and hopefully take the action you want me to take, right?
Man, I didn't even think about the colorblind aspect of it. It's like, wow, interesting. And people get so fancy with their websites nowadays too. Like it just, yeah, that's crazy. Um, so I guess another question that I would have is like time length, right? So, let's say I just have a basic, 4-page website, nothing too fancy. Is this a long process to get done, or is it fairly simple? What does that process look like?
Yeah.
From, say I'm like, hey, look, Mike, I need you guys to take a look at my website, see what we need to do to make it more accessible to, people that are handicapped or handy capable, as some like to say.
Yeah.
Um, where do we start? How do we get to that point?
Yeah, the first place I always point people to, and we can share this as well here, but I just say go scan your site. There's lots of free tools out there. AudioEye.com has one as well, where you can go
Okay.
and you just put in your URL and it'll
Right.
scan it and essentially say, based off these globally accepted guidelines for accessibility, we
Right.
found X errors, on your page across
Right.
these, categories of errors. And again, it'll be that illuminating moment where you're like, oh, I guessed that maybe we'd have 5 or 7 issues. And oh no, we've got 297 accessibility issues
Right.
just
Now,
on our
what is it?
homepage.
What is a good number to be at? So, like, if somebody goes and scans their business, like, is under 100 pretty good, or is that still really high? Like, where do you want to be, to it for it not to be a problem? I
Yeah.
guess.
I mean, the safe answer, you just want to be as close to zero as possible. Is
Right.
that
Understand that.
realistic in
Right.
today's environment with like change, right? Probably not, right?
Right.
So what we like to tell people is there's a few ways to tackle it. One, as I mentioned before, put some automation on your site, some code that will scan, and that'll hit, a good portion of the criteria. It can automatically fix those, even though your code
Right.
is not quite right. It'll update it for the user. But then we like to say, take people with disabilities, take some experts in digital accessibility, and have them look at your key user flow. So if you're an e-commerce site, let's check your product pages, your templates there. Let's check your checkout flow and see, can a
Right.
person with a disability who wants to buy that yellow shirt or that protein powder, can they add it to cart? Can they fill in the shipping
Right.
information? Can they fill in all this other information using a screen reader? Or can they do it not even using a mouse, just your keyboard? Some people can't use a mouse with their mobility
Right.
issues. So
Right.
we work with companies to say, essentially, if you're a B2B company and you've got forms and you want people to sign up for accounts and contact you, are all those built accessibly? So it's really about,
Yeah.
what are your key user flows, and let's make sure that those are accessible. And if you're able to do that with the homepage, you get mostly where you need to be in terms of having an accessible experience. And the other thing that we find, the people and the sites getting sued are generally the ones who are doing nothing. They're generally the ones who there's no effort. And so
Right.
you have a person with a
Right.
disability who's trying to buy something. If they're working with a site and they see that site just, I don't care about you, there's a good chance they'll
Right.
get sued. If they're having interaction and they see that site made an honest mistake, missed something,
Right.
they're gonna look at that as a good thing. That at least this company is
Right.
trying. Nobody is
Yeah.
going to be perfect because it's just really
Right.
hard. But seeing that there's
Right.
that effort is really the most important part.
100%. Yeah. So I mean, even though I think it's the right thing to do, and it's really the smart thing to do, um, even if you just do it as a financial reason to not get sued, you should still do it, right? There's
Right.
a lot of reasons to make your website accessible for everyone, right? Now, other than mobility, hand issues, sight and deaf, is there any other major ones that kind of stand out, as far as like website and app, or any other certain disabilities that maybe people aren't thinking about?
I'd
I'm just
say, yeah,
curious.
I'd say you hit the main categories. Probably the big one that also people don't think about more often because it's invisible are cognitive disabilities. So
Right.
ADHD
Okay.
and things like that,
Right. So we
which
can actually optimize the website to kind of wow. And so if you think about that, then people who are all over the place, ADHD, right? Wow, that's really that's I mean, and that's a huge, there's a lot. I mean, it seems like most people actually have some
yeah,
form of ADHD, right?
well,
Um,
100%. And also, I think kind of the social world that we are in now, where people are
yeah,
ingrained for like 5-second content and
yeah,
just quick consumption,
yeah,
moving on to the next thing, which, yes,
yeah,
to a degree is like a small
yeah,
form of like that ADHD kind of principle,
yeah,
right? And so
100%.
like when you're building a site and auditing a page, it's looking for, am I using acronyms? Am I using
Right,
jargon within the space that somebody's not going to be able to pick up on or understand? Am I
right,
communicating my business value in the most simple,
yeah,
core way possible, or am I kind of droning on and
right,
on about it? So some principles like that that you might do for somebody with ADHD or a cognitive disability,
yeah,
again, at the end of the day, me, who's coming to your site also, if you're writing it more simply, if you're making it much easier for me to
right. I'm gonna
understand you,
understand it better too.
then I'm
Yeah,
converting
100%.
just as quickly now because I
Exactly,
better understand you.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. You're going to automatically convert at a higher rate because it's easier to understand. It's faster to get where you need to be. Um, yeah, it just again it goes back to that saying, make it so easy a blind man can do
Yeah,
it, right? And so this it's crazy. I've done about 100 podcasts and nobody's ever brought up anything like this. I've been to dozens of masterminds and business
right,
conferences, and nobody has ever once brought up digital accessibility in any sort of form, at all.
yeah,
Whether it's about the lawsuit side or doing what's right or SEO or web development, like even people that build websites don't
right,
even talk about it.
yeah.
Why is I mean, these have been, things that have always been around for a long time. Why do you think it's not? Is there just not enough companies raising awareness or doing anything about it? Or, why is it just, you know, why am I just hearing
Yeah,
about
yeah.
this now?
I think that's part of it. It's just there's not a lot of people talking about it, so there's not a lot of awareness. This is a little overly simple, but I do believe there's a lot of truth that in the physical world, when you leave your house, you go to the store, you see an automatic door. That's a reminder that, oh, automatic doors are for people with wheelchairs. You see the curb cut
Right,
again, so somebody with a wheelchair can get that.
right,
When you're trying to cross the street, you hear the
right,
noise, right? So it knows, so somebody who's blind can know when it's time to cross. In the physical world,
right,
there's all these physical reminders of accessibility and
right,
making physical spaces accessible to everybody.
right,
In the digital world, it's all in the code, it's all behind the scenes. And
right,
so
right. We can't really see a lot of it.
if you're not actively taught to think about it, you have no reason
Right.
to. There's no
Yeah.
cues that remind you, like, oh, I need to code
Yeah.
accessibly. So it truly is, in my opinion, a learning
Yeah.
and an issue of awareness, and which is why we're out here, talking to as many people as possible. Because, yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
you can go through thousands of conversations and not hear it, but when you do hear it, it's like, oh, this makes sense on like every
It
level
makes
that
perfect
we're
sense.
talking
Yeah,
about, right?
every level. I mean, every level. Like the first thing I'm going to do when I get off here is go to that site and do a check
Yeah.
because it does. It makes sense on every single level. Now, you explained that it's not a super, crazy process. It's fairly easy to get done. It's easy to scan and see where you're at. Now, as far as pricing, like, is this something that's going to cost you about the same amount as building a website, or are we talking significantly less?
Oh no, it's significantly less. It obviously
Okay.
depends on like the size of your site, how many
Right.
monthly users,
Yeah.
visitors you might have.
Yeah.
But I was actually reading an article earlier today that, recommended or kind of noted that when it comes to compliance or risk management, a lot of companies might have 5 to 10% of their overall budget for all risk management, all compliance. And then from
Right.
there, of your compliance budget, maybe 5 to 10% goes to accessibility. So at the
Okay.
smallest sites, we're talking very small amounts to kind of have
Right.
that ongoing
Like
maintenance.
like a few hundred or a few thousand.
For very small sites, we're in like the few hundreds in a year for
Right.
sure. And then obviously,
Right.
as you scale up, that goes up
Right.
with your business. But
Right.
the cost of creating accessible experiences is
Yeah, the ROI
by
on
far
it is
lower, yes,
by
than
far outweighs. Yeah.
any potential risk of
Yeah.
litigation and
Yeah.
lawsuits,
100%.
and by far, like you
But
said,
also, I mean, it
ROI.
makes sense that, especially with an AI world now, if you make it so much easier to read and understand for a human, an AI is going to be able to much easier understand it as well, right? Like they're scraping the internet. Most of those AI platforms, Chat GPT and all those other things out there, when you're asking it a question about a business or whatever, it's scraping their website, right? And so if you make it easy to understand, they're going to get that information correct for the most part, every single time, right? If it's accessible, if it's easy to understand, it's easy to navigate and all that good stuff. So, it makes sense that overall it does. It makes perfect sense in every aspect,
Yeah,
you know?
we're starting to research this actually a little bit more. But to your point about AI, we're actually seeing that while accessible coding best practices have a big impact on SEO, like you said, that we're
Yeah.
actually starting to see that the way AI is scraping sites for that knowledge is a little
Yeah.
bit different, and that the accessibility tree that exists in the code actually is a huge indicator for these AI engines.
Right.
And so sites that are built digitally accessible are actually fueling AI search results better than sites that are not. So I actually feel
That
like
are
as
yeah, it
we
makes perfect sense.
yeah, as we move forward into such an AI driven world,
Yeah.
accessibility will
It's
be a big driver
absolutely
there.
necessary. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. So, a lot of our guests have either a gift or something they want to give to our listeners and viewers. You mentioned the scan. So, tell us about that and where we can go to get our website scanned.
Yeah, head over to audioeye.com, AUDIOEYE.com, and you'll see the URL there to within our site to be able to insert your URL. You hit start the scan, and it'll take a
Awesome.
minute or two. It'll scan it, and it'll bring back pretty detailed results on, are you compliant or not? If this is your first
Right.
time, most likely you're going to be not compliant. It'll tell you,
Yep.
how many average errors per page did it find, and it'll give you some insight into here were like the top 5 errors that we saw consistently.
Right.
Here's where the error usually occurs. Here's the best practice. So give some good detail around how you
Wow.
can start to think about some of the common issues that might exist on your
Yeah.
pages.
And then, so from there, is this something that they can just share with their web developer and they can fix? Or is this something that you've got to know about digital accessibility in order to be able to fix these problems? I'd assume, right?
Yeah, you definitely have to have some knowledge and experience. It is something that a web developer can learn over time for sure.
Right.
But and what we
But the
find,
average web developer isn't going to have that knowledge.
nor often do they have the time, right? They've got other initiatives that
Right.
they're working on and
Right.
personalization, targeting, things like that. And so, yeah, a lot of times we do find most of our customers come to us and say, "Hey, take it off my hands, like do it for me,
Right.
like make it as easy as possible." We do have some who they want their developers to learn the best practices and own it. We'll work with them on that. But yeah, there's
Right.
definitely most companies want to find a good partner who knows the industry, knows the best practices, takes as
Right.
much work as possible off their plate for them, and we'll
Yeah.
do that with a lot of customers and help them to focus on the areas that they do have the expertise.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. So audioeye.com. we could do the scan, and then from there, I'm assuming we could just schedule a consultation with you guys to
Yeah,
be able to figure out where we go from there.
exactly. We've got make it very easy to schedule time with one of our experts
I
to
would
answer
imagine
questions.
your guys' website is pretty accessible.
We like to think so. We still find things from time to time, as everybody does,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
we're running it through all the technology and all the experts
Right.
to make sure it's built the way it should be.
Awesome, Mike. Dude, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. It's a really great conversation. We'll definitely try to get this out to the public as much as possible. I think, a lot of people, like I said, just don't know about it
Yeah,
and really need to hear about it. So keep up the great work, man. I wish you guys the best in really getting this out to the masses. And, hopefully in the next few years, we can live in a digital accessible world, right? That's the
yes,
goal.
that is the vision. Appreciate your time
Yep.
to help spread the word.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
Absolutely, brother.
have a good one.
We'll talk soon.